From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thanks very much, Ollie Barrett. Hope you've had a good Monday. Hope you've had a good Monday as well. A bit of a mixed bag weather-wise here in the northwest. I'm Richie Allen. Did you have a good weekend? You did. Good to be with you. Lots to talk about today, like any other day.
Richie Allen.
So let's get on with it then. I'll be taking your phone calls today.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yes, I'll be taking your phone calls in around about 30 minutes time. And I've put a meme on Twitter and Rog has put a meme on Facebook with all the details. If you're calling, the best way to do so is through Skype. The Skype account is Chat with Richie. That's all one word, Chat with Richie. If you're on Skype, you can call me and we'll have a chat about anything you want to talk about. But if you want to use the phone in the UK, it is 0161 818 2018. That is 0161 818 2018. And if you're calling from outside the UK, it's very simple. It is +44 161 818 2018. +44 161 818 2018. That's the phone number. But as I said, you can Skype Chat with Richie. That's the way to do it. Much easier to do it that way. It isn't open now, so don't bother me. It's actually switched off. It is genuinely switched off. You'll know that if you try to call. It's switched off. So I'll turn it on around about hour. Alrighty. I'm a bit bunged up of this nasty allergy that I've got. I get it every now and then. Sometimes I get it really heavy, but that's rare. But today I've got it really heavy. I can barely breathe through my nose, and I've lost a gallon, I think, of water today out of my head. One of those things I suffer with the old allergies. But there you are. I'm in good form despite that, though. I'm in good form. I'm always in good form, it must be said. Not a guy who's prone to too much of the old melancholy. I don't let it get on top of me. John Bercow says he will stand down as Speaker of the Commons and as an MP at the next election or on October 31st, whichever one happens to be first. Speaking in Parliament this afternoon. This is no great surprise, by the way. Bercow standing down. He was done for. The Conservative Party, who many of the Conservative Party MPs loathe him. They loathe him. They despise him. The party itself had decided that they were going to put a candidate against him in the next election. He's a Conservative MP, but he's not because he's the Speaker, if you understand. And it's not the done thing to put somebody up against the Speaker. Most parties don't do it. But they're so cheesed off with this guy, they were going to, extract a bit of revenge during the next election campaign. But Bercow has said, I'm standing down. It was a privilege and an honour and all of that old bullshit. Do you want to hear a bit of Bercow? Here he is, earlier this afternoon.
At the 2017 election, I promised my wife and children that it would be my last. This is a pledge that I intend to keep. If the House votes tonight for an early general election, my tenure as Speaker and MP will end when this Parliament ends.
Whoa.
If the House does not so vote, I have concluded that the least disruptive and most democratic course of action would be for me to stand down at the close of business on Thursday, October the 31st. I have also sought to be the backbenchers' backstop. I could not do so without the support of a small but superb team in Speaker's House. the wider House staff, my Buckingham constituents, and above all, my wife Sally and our 3 children, Oliver, Freddie, and Jemima.
Yeah, there's years of therapy right there, Jemima. Who calls their children names like Jemima, Jesus, Mary and Joseph? Anyway, so that's Bercow gone. Bercow has been an ardent, staunch, unapologetic Remainer. His car has got a bollocks to Brexit sticker. He's an obnoxious, arrogant little twerp, and not just because, you know, I'm somebody who believes the UK should be outside the European Union. The guy couldn't find the word dictionary in a democracy. There you go. That's ironic. I'm calling Bercow a clown, and I'm acting the clown myself. I was going to say he couldn't find the word democracy in a dictionary, but I made a balls of it. There you are. Monday. So there'll be a 5-week suspension of Parliament, and that will begin later on, huh? The work-shy bastards, huh? They've just come back from their holidays and they're off again. But this is because of the proroging of Parliament by Boris Johnson. So they're off for another 5 weeks. There'll be party conferences and stuff like that. After, later on tonight, MPs, as you heard Ollie Barrett so succinctly say in the news, MPs will reject Johnson's call for a snap election. They should reject it tonight. When I say they should, I don't agree with it, but they don't want an election. Right. Opposition MPs confirmed and have been saying all day they would not back the push by Johnson for a general election on October 15th. They insist that a law blocking a no-deal Brexit must be implemented first. Now that gets royal assent today and it becomes law. Boris Johnson's ministers have said this new law is lousy and they will test it to the limit one more time. They'll test it to the limit. Basically, what they mean by that is, how do I explain it? By testing it to the limit, this new law that requires Johnson to ask for an extension, they're basically saying they're going to scrutinise it to see what it really means and what it really requires them to do, is what I would have said. Johnson has been warned that he could face legal action for flouting it. He might end up in prison. Might end up in there with Tommy Robinson. I'd pay for that conversation. I'd pay to hear that conversation. Chubby. When is Tommy out of jail? It must be fairly soon as well. Anyway, enough of Tommy Robinson. At present, UK law states the country will leave on October 31st, regardless of whether a deal has been agreed with Brussels or not. We'll come back to some of that. Boris Johnson was in Dublin this morning, meeting the Irish Taoiseach, a guy called Leo Varadkar. Johnson repeatedly called him Leo, by the way, in the presser. Did you notice that? After the meeting, kept calling him Leo. Varadkar made a point of referring to the other clown as Prime Minister and not Boris. Here's the most relevant moment. Boris Johnson.
I want to find a deal. I want to get a deal. Like you, I've looked carefully at no deal. I've assessed its consequences both for our country and yours. And yes, of course, we could do it. The UK could certainly get through it. But be in no doubt that outcome would be a failure of statecraft for which we would all be responsible.
A failure of statecraft. Statecraft is a game you can play on your iPhone. You download it from the App Store. Statecraft, is it? Nobody knows what he's talking about. However, that's very important what he said there about getting a deal. And keep that in mind, because Nigel Farage was on television this morning in advance of Johnson meeting with Leo Varadkar. We'll come back to that. Jeremy Corbyn is disgusted that Parliament will rise this evening and not return until October the 14th. Jeremy Corbyn's not happy at all.
Parliament should be sitting and Parliament should be holding the government to account, and the Prime Minister appears to be wanting to run away from questions. He was appointed Prime Minister at the end of July.
What a mumbling fuckwit, eh? Does anybody understand what he's saying? an anti-democratic Prime Minister. Fucking speak up, man.
He's faced one Prime Minister's question time, and now he's proroguing Parliament, so there will not be a PMQs this Wednesday.
The irony of Corbyn's backbenchers accusing Johnson of mumbling last week at PMQs, right?
We will do everything we can to prevent the crashing out.
They're crashing out, eh?
On the 31st of October, and will support an election when that is clear that we're not doing that crashing out. We all want an election. We all want to avoid a crashing out.
Yeah. Now, Paul Scully is the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. I didn't know that till today, and I'm supposed to know this stuff, don't you know? I'm supposed to know these things. I read enough newspapers, but Paul Scully is the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. James Cleverly would be the chairman. So on this notion of refusing to obey the law, will Johnson ignore the bill that receives royal assent today, and will he try to take the United Kingdom out of the European Union on October 31st? Paul Scully spoke to Sky's Kay Burley, the one and only. And here's a little snippet of that, because it's kind of interesting.
We know this is a war of attrition, basically. This is the countdown to October the 31st, when we're going to come out of the EU, come what may.
You can't, though, can you? Because the rules, the new law that's being put in place means you won't be able to.
Well, let's look at what, exactly how that the wording of the law is. We're going to stick to the rule of law, clearly. But we've got to, Boris has been really clear that he's not going to ask for an extension. You had Leo Varadkar, interestingly today, saying that if the UK is going to leave the EU, it should be on the 31st of October, and that's what the majority of countries, he said, the member states, believe around Europe as well.
It's gone through that house, gone to the other place, come back again. It will be law later on today. Why would the Prime Minister want to go against that?
Well, I think actually what he's doing, he's going with what, as I say, Leo Varadkar said, the majority of member states has said, is that he's going for the majority, what the majority of the British public say, and that is that we need to get this done so we can actually start working about how we're leaving, not whether we're leaving, and we can get back to the domestic agenda, talk about police, education and the NHS.
But it will be the law of the land.
But as I say, this is why we need to look carefully at exactly what the law of the land says and how it's worded and what it means in reality, because inevitably, every time I've seen things, whether it's the Fixed Term Parliament Act, whether it's protesting outside Parliament, anything that's written for one particular occasion in a hurry tends to be really badly drafted.
Do you hear those fucking retards in the background? There's been a guy, and he's been there for 7 or 8 weeks or even 10 weeks, and that's all he does, this idiot. He stands there and screams, "Stop Brexit," at the top of his voice. The guy's obviously mentally fucking ill. The men in white coats should have gotten him off the street a long time ago. Of course, this is the reason why all of the commercial and national networks have decamped to Westminster. It's all about drama, pathos, and this narrative, this script, keeping everybody invested in it. Anyway, back to Paul Scully. So he said a few times to Kay Burley, who just isn't listening to him. He says, we'll have a look at this new law that gets royal assent today, and we'll see how legal it really is, how it was drafted, because we've got legal people and all, Kay. And we had a referendum, a binding referendum, where the people said, and the people have sovereignty allegedly, leave the European Union. But the Ginger Ninja is like a dog with a bone, she just won't shut the fuck up. So she won't.
Yeah, but I mean, those lawmakers in there know that Boris Johnson is a slippery fish, so they've tried to cover off every eventuality.
Well, as I say, let's see that there, because as I say, the vast majority of the country, if we get out the Westminster bubble, you don't even have to go that far out of London or that far away from Westminster to find out the frustration that members of the public have with this place here, the lack of political leadership, and actually just trying to, as you can hear in the background, stop Brexit, not actually stop no deal.
Okay, so you still think, whatever happens, we will be leaving on the 31st of October?
Well, what I know is Boris has been really clear that he is not going to go to Brussels and ask for an extension for the EU, and I absolutely support him in that.
Doesn't answer my question, though, with respect.
Jesus Christ, Kay. You've turned into Emma Barnett within the space of 24 hours. How many fucking times does he have to tell you? We don't plan on breaking the law, but let's have a look at the law. Let's test it. Let's see how fucking robust it is. Fucking gingers.
Well, that's all I can give you, because at the end of the day, Boris is the Prime Minister, and he's the one that's got to go there. And we've got this surrender bill, which basically doesn't just give him a letter to hand over to the EU. It also gives the EU the power to determine when we leave the EU as well. That's about as surrender as it gets. So that's why Boris is right to say he's just not going to ask for that extension.
So just to clarify,
oh my God,
the law of the land and the lawmakers have told the Prime Minister, who is not above the law, that they don't want, and they have legal obligation to not leave on the 31st of October. Our Prime Minister will not represent our views in the European Union.
Well, it depends who you're talking about. If he represent the people's views, absolutely he is. Absolutely he is. He's been charged to respect the referendum.
The people, I remember them. I remember the people. I want to say hi to my great pal, Jean-Anne Crowley, who's listening in. She's got me all nostalgic, Jean-Anne. She's asked me did I know anything about Gilbert and Sullivan. And she's got something to send me that's funny. And I was in the Mikado when I was very young. Now, my listeners from Ballybeg in Waterford, I've got plenty of listeners in Ballybeg because that's where I come from. And my listeners who went to St. Saviour's National School in Ballybeg will, and especially those who are my age, will remember me. Well, they won't remember me, but they'll remember in the Theatre Royal, in Fail-in-a-Sculla, when I triumphantly bestrode the stage at the Theatre Royal, playing Nanky Poo in Gilbert and Sullivan's Mikado. A wandering minstrel I, a thing of shreds and patches. Is that it? Of ballad songs and snatches and dreamy lullaby. How do you remember that shit? I've not even thought of that for 39, 38, 37... No, 34 years. Honest to Jesus, it's not crossed me mind. And my pal, Jean-Anne there, said to me, do you know anything about Gilbert and Sullivan? And it's just brought me right back. Nanky Poo, eh? Nanky Poo. I used to get called Lanky Poo because I'm so tall. Children, see, that's back before there were such a thing as snowflakes. Children used to call me Lanky Poo, and I wouldn't melt down about it or cry or go running to a fucking teacher. I just bait the piss out of them, is what I would do. No, I didn't bait the piss out of them either. I just called them names back. That's how it works, you see. Right, so back to Brexit then. And you don't have to talk about Brexit in the phone. And by the way, in about 10 minutes' time, I'm going to open the Skype and I'm going to open the phone line. And you can talk about anything. You can tell me I'll be your psychoanalyst. I'll be your psychotherapist if you want. If you want to tell me what's going on with you, I'll sit here and counsel you. Or you can talk about medicine, you can talk about health, vaccines, anything you bloody well want when I open the phone line in a minute or in a few minutes and the Skype. So Nigel Farage, the leader of the Brexit Party, was on GMB Good Morning Britain this morning and he raised a couple of interesting points. Piers Morgan, gobshite, brought up fear-mongering over no deal, this idea about food shortages and medicine shortages and all the rest of it. And Nigel Farage had a good answer. Now, I've got no time for any of these people, but I sift through the bullshit. And Farage's answer is genuine and it's truthful. You'll hear Piers Morgan first, then you'll hear Farage.
On the issue of we leave with no deal, for argument's sake, somehow Boris manages to get this to happen. The fear is, as you know, from the other side, is that there will be food shortages, medical supplies, and so on.
Yeah.
What is the reality? We immediately go under WTO rules under that circumstance. Does that allow us to set our own tariff on stuff coming in or not?
Of course. I mean, if we wanted to, we could reduce the price of children's clothes, shoes, food. It'll be up to us. We would be in charge of all of those things.
Is there any reason why WTO rules would prohibit us from having an arrangement which allows the normal flow of food, medical supplies and so on?
These arguments are ludicrous. They're made by people who've never bought and sold and traded a good
Well, they're important arguments,
lives.
but what's the answer?
Well, they're important. It's scaremongering. It's ludicrous scaremongering.
Well, what is the answer, though?
Trade will continue. And not all our trade goes through
completely on our terms, or is it dictated by WTO?
The WTO sets a baseline, all right, for how business is continued. But if we were deadly serious, if Brussels really thought we were leaving in 50 days' time, quite possibly we could negotiate, I'm going to get too technical, but we could negotiate under GATT a freeze whereby we carried on with everything as it was with Europe for the next 2 years, We'd have left the European Union. So there are plenty of good ways of sorting this out. But even if, Piers, we leave on WTO, do you know, go to Southampton today, go to Felixstowe today, you will see containers coming in from China on the biggest ships you've ever seen, and they're on lorries and up the motorways within minutes.
Labour's position, which seems to me utterly staggering, is that they want to win the election when it happens. They then want to go to the European Union and negotiate a new deal, then go to a second referendum in which they would campaign against the deal they've just negotiated and would vote and would campaign to stay in. I mean, this seems to me the stuff of madness.
I thought it was April
and when they
Fool's Day.
accuse Boris and the Tories of being self-interested and all the rest of it, duplicitous and so on, we have had so many of these Labour politicians in the last 4 years saying absolutely they would honour the results of any referendum. They actually had a campaign manifesto pledge in the last election saying after the referendum, we are still going to honour it. We've had Jeremy Corbyn at his desk pledging no second referendum, we will honour it repeatedly. And yet here they are saying, basically, we just want to stop Brexit.
Labour is now Remain party, backing a second referendum. That's where they are. Corbyn has been slowly but surely pushed into that position.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Now, remember, the interview with Farage on GMB predated, or it came before Boris Johnson, that is, met Leo Varadkar, in Dublin. And he was asked by the GMB hosts about helping Boris Johnson get this thing done and dusted in the next few weeks or through an election. And this was Farage's response.
Forget whether people have changed their minds. I tell you what people do want. They want this over. They want it done. They want us to get on with the rest of our lives. And I think, who wants this to dominate our politics, our country for the next 5 years, 10 years?
I totally agree.
Just do it.
To be fair, Mr.
And I'd like it over. And that's why I'm prepared to help the Prime Minister. I'm prepared to put country before party. And I will work with Boris Johnson if he goes for a clean break.
You said...
But only if he goes for a clean break.
Yes, not for that treaty. Not for reheating.
What if he does manage somehow? What if the EU do blink and he does get a new concession, say on the backstop?
It's not enough.
It wouldn't be enough.
Hang on, you don't even know what the concession would be.
I've read the letter. On the 19th of August, Boris wrote to Donald Tusk saying, please remove the backstop. If you remove the backstop, the rest of the deal is satisfactory. It is not satisfactory.
No, the rest of the deal is horrendous. It's worse than remaining in the European Union, if you can understand that. It really is. Now, that was very early in the morning. Then Farage heard, I've not got any more audio for you, but Farage then observed the Johnson-Varadkar press conference, and Farage was very unimpressed by Johnson's basically saying that it would be a failure of statecraft if we left with no deal, and I'm determined to get some sort of a deal. Farage pissed off because, as he just told Piers Morgan there and Susanna Reid and all the rest of it, that in August, Johnson wrote to Tusk and said, if you take away the backstop, I'll vote for the deal. The deal is horrendous. And that's the way it is. 26 minutes past the hour. Let me say hello to a few people. I had John in Salford. How you doing, John? John is 6'5" as well. People used to mock me, says John, by asking me, how's the weather up there? I used to gaze down as if I couldn't see them and shout, is someone talking to me down there? Good stuff, John. Les Hewitt says, no deal Brexit, bring it on. 24 hours, says Les, and BMW or BMW, VW, Airbus, Siemens, Atos and Allianz will be lobbying the European Union for a UK trade deal. Now, this is brilliant, Les. And this is something I've been saying forever and a day. We should have left on June 24th, 2016. We should have just left then and there. Don't give me this bull spit that you couldn't have done. Yes, you could have done. And you could have said, listen, we will keep trading arrangements as they are. Right? The European Union wouldn't have and won't put punitive tariffs on British goods entering the continent because, I've said this a million times, they sell far more into the UK than the UK sells to them. If the European Union was in fact to threaten the UK with punitive tariffs, don't you know, all the companies mentioned by Les would contact Tusk and Juncker and Verhofstadt and all the other fucktards and would say to them, what? The last thing the world you're going to do now is piss them off. Don't do it. They would kill them. Corporations have murdered people for less. We'd murder them. But we never intended to leave. There's never been a Remainer. There's never been a genuine Brexiteer. Not one. Maybe David Davis, maybe. Not one of them genuinely wants to do it. Johnson voted for May's deal. He's another liar. Mog's the only one who's not voted for it, as far as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. None of them there are genuinely committed to walking away from this tyranny. And that's where we are. And we're going to leave Brexit now. I mean, if you want to bring it up in the phone in a few minutes' time, bring it up by all means. You can bring anything up. I'm going to give you the details. Let me say hi to These Are the Damned. To Dean Smith, who's in Nova Scotia now. How you doing, Dean? I hope life is treating you well in Nova Scotia. Tiger Johnson says, Kay Birdie keeps saying, yeah, but. Someone should tell her that, yeah, but is little more than a mating call for an arsehole, says Tiger. Charlotte asks for a rendition of Three Little Maids from School Are We. No chance, Charlotte. I didn't have to sing that, of course. Hi to Anonymous in Western Massachusetts as well. And to everybody else who's on the old... hi to Mawinga, to Gail, to Faisal, to everybody who's tweeting in. Hi to Paul Alawi, who says, if we lived in a fair world, the Irish would be allowed another chance to vote on... yes, on Lisbon and on Nice. Then the backstop would no longer be a problem. That's right. The Lisbon Treaty, which was a treaty which ceded even more power to the European Union, to Brussels. The Irish saw it for what it was, voted no, and the European Union said, well, go back and vote again until you give us the right answer. It is a fascistic, tyrannical organisation. Hi to Sutty's Rehab, late to the show. Don't know if you've mentioned it. What about the Soros propaganda on BBC Two last night? I did talk about this on the newspaper review thing on YouTube this morning. Haven't watched it yet. We flicked around, did the future Mrs. Allen and I, and we saw that it was on, but I've not watched it yet. Hi to Andy, who says the whole Brexit impasse is pure theatre designed to fool the people into thinking we're going to leave, says Andy. Yes, that's what it's all about. My God! This is the Richie Allen Show, Europe's most listened to independent radio show by a country mile. My name is Richie Allen. It's Monday, September the 9th, 2019. Oh yeah. Give me about 2 minutes and I'll have Skype and I'll have the phone line open for you. And I look forward to hearing from you. Alright? This is The Cure. The Cure on their Richie Allen Show. The time is 27 minutes to the top of the hour. It's Monday's programme. Welcome to it. Throwing open the Skype and the phone lines before we welcome Matt to the programme. I'm excited about chatting with Matt because I know Matt. He tweets into the programme and he joins the live streams in the morning. Always has something interesting to say. Anonymous in Western Massachusetts. We'll join him in a second. Before we do that, though, let me give you the details in case you're just tuning in. If you want to call the programme, the best way to do it is through Skype because it doesn't cost you anything if you've got a Skype connection. My Skype handle is Chat with Richie, all one word, Chat with Richie. It's on a meme that's on Twitter. It's on a meme that's on Facebook. The phone number is, if you're calling inside the UK, local Manchester area code 0161 818 2018. That's 0161 818 2018. If you're calling from outside the UK, it is +44 161 818 2018. And you can talk about anything. Doesn't matter. Bring it up. And don't keep calling. When you hear me speaking with Matt, I'm going to take you one at a time, so calm down. And if I see that you've been trying to call me, I'll call you back. So don't worry about that, all right? So I can see somebody trying to get through on a mobile phone now. Calm down. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Matt is in Western Massachusetts. Matt, welcome to the programme. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Richie?
I'm thrilled to hear from you, mate. I see your comments on the live streams. I see you tweeting in. So I'm delighted to finally make your acquaintance. What's happening in Western Massachusetts right now? How are things?
Not too much. It's a beautiful day here. Just have the day off from work and super excited to be in on the show.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, well, Monday's a great day to have off. Anytime you take a day off work, Monday's the day to do it. So you're basically going to open the proceedings, Matt, so you can talk about whatever you want, and we can take it on. So what's on your mind this afternoon?
Well, it's so hard to pick a topic with all the madness going on, but I mean, I guess we could start with what I think is the core root of it all, and it's the monetary system.
Brilliant.
And just how people need to realize the simple fact that none of this is real. It's just some man's concept a long time ago, an idea written down on paper, and that we need to ditch the paper-based reality and just take care of people.
Fantastic sentiment, that. I've said a few times over the years that if I could just make people aware of something, just one thing, if I could introduce it to everybody, it would be the system of money we use. Because I think it's almost like that's the gateway topic, Matt, isn't it? If you get people understanding who makes or who introduces money into society, who's got that responsibility, and what money really is, I think it'd be game over. I mean, we often talk about Ford. Ford famously said that if people knew how the banks worked and how money basically worked, there'd be a revolution in the morning. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. But the problem is that we're just indoctrinated on a generational level to not understand money. We're taught so much about how to get a job and how to earn money throughout our whole lives, but nothing about where it comes from.
Why do you think that is? This is hugely important. Let's stay with this, right? Because most of us, we don't have a lot of money, and we don't have a lot of money in reserve. I mean, I'm one of those. I've never pleaded poverty, but I'm one of those. If we find ourselves out of work, my partner and I, after a couple of months, we're in serious trouble. That's a fact, and most of us are like that, Matt. So why? Because money is so central to our needs, to what we do, to our survival, why don't more of us, you would have thought it is a natural thing to wonder about banks and ask questions like, where do they get their money from, right? You know, why don't we think about it more often?
I don't know. I mean, I think perhaps the compulsory education system really has a lot to do with it. We're just taught not to question the way things are. And as the generations go farther, we just become more complicit with it. And it just gets worse and worse. And now with the way schools are now with Common Core, it's just becoming even worse.
Tell us about Common Core. This is good. Matt is live from Western Massachusetts. It's great to be chatting with Matt, because I've seen a lot of his comments over the years on YouTube and on Twitter. So it's nice to finally hear from the gentleman, and he's on with us. Matt, Common Core, sum it up. Give us the Cliff Note version. What is it?
Well, for me, and what I've noticed with it, it basically takes basic math equations and basic ways to do things and takes roundabout ways and makes 15 different steps. It confuses these kids and basically weeds out their creativity, and then kind of takes that person and they're just trying to like jam all that out of it and make kids all the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you summed it up brilliantly, actually. Yeah, it's almost I don't want to say it's like the implementation of a kind of a robot mentality, but it kind of is, isn't it? With children,
definitely.
Yeah. And there's a compliance factor to it as well with children, you know, being taught so young to comply, that this is the only way to do something and this is the way it's got to be done, and it fans out to not just mathematics, but to so many other subjects as well. Back to the monetary stuff, Matt. Would that be a conversation that you'd have had with friends and family, like, hey mom, you know, or hey brother or sister, come on, where do you think money comes from?
Oh, most people have no clue. I mean, they think the Federal Reserve is a federal institution and that it is controlled by the federal government, and the government prints our money. And I'm fortunate. My girlfriend works in finance, and so I understand macroeconomics because she's thoroughly explained it to me. And there is no money. There's never any money in circulation until the debt is created, because it's a debt-based economy. It's designed that way, which creates scarcity by default. You know, you never catch up because it's designed not to happen. And we do this on a scale now where, like, I don't understand $1 trillion because it's not a real thing.
No, how could anybody even imagine $1 trillion? That's right. And of course, as time goes by, that debt inevitably increases. It's a formula designed to increase that debt, and increasingly people are expected to pay for it through, and we see it through, especially in the UK, you'll be aware, Matt, we see it through the defunding of really important programs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here, like they just defunded a bunch of programs to build the border wall or whatever, and that's crazy. Like if we really think about the debt and the trillions of dollars, and they only need a few $1 billion for this thing, just write the check for it. I mean, what's the real damage that could be done? I mean, it's all just a game. It's an illusion. It's paper. And for me, it all comes back to that. The deeper I go into this, the more I dig into even vaccines, chemtrails. I mean, pick the topic. It's all just paper. All these laws, all of this stuff is paper. And if we followed natural law, even just a little bit, like none of this would even matter.
You mentioned your girlfriend there working in finance. Does she take an interest in these subjects? You said that she explained it to you, so she obviously does. Then she's really interested. I mean, she's probably got some horror stories. Then I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because she's one of the few people at her job that actually understands money. And most of the people that even work in banking don't know this stuff because they just don't know it. They're not interested, or they don't look any further. I mean, I don't know if you guys over there have something similar to the FDIC, which over here is the Federal Deposit Insurance Company, which everybody here thinks is the saving grace for their money. When if you really read that form and what's written in that, they have 100 years to pay you back your money. It's not like they're going to give it back next week if something goes bad.
Is that right, Matt? Because we do, we do have we have a law here. As far as I understand, citizens in the UK are covered up to, I think, deposits up to £100,000. I stand to be corrected there. But this is really important. We've got Matt on the line. We know Matt is anonymous in Western Mass. He's not so anonymous anymore now, but there you are.
No,
but thanks for calling in, Matt. It's great to have you on. This is a very serious subject we're talking about, and he's brought up this deposit insurance scheme. And you've educated me, my friend. You're telling me that a bank can go belly up and lose lose its money, lose its capital, and its clients or its customers might be labouring under the misapprehension that their deposits are covered, but they're not, because you're telling me that, at least in the United States anyway, banks might, they're given up to 100 years to refund that customer. Is that right? This is very interesting.
That's pretty crazy, right?
Wow. I'm waiting for our friends on Twitter to do some research on my behalf, because I've not got the time to do it now. But what is it here in the UK? I thought it was up to £100,000, but I bet, Matt, if I go into the fine print and the fine detail,
sure you can go to the FDIC.gov or whatever it is.
Yeah, we've got. You're right.
General form and find it.
Well said. You're absolutely spot on. It's FDIC.gov. Matt, stay with me because I'm bringing this up here now. Yeah, I've got it here. I'm going to have a good look at this a bit later on. I'm getting loads of calls coming in, Matt, so I'm going to move on in a minute or two. Thanks for bringing that up. Anything else you wanted to chat about today? Anything else you wanted to bring up? The finance is huge, obviously.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was great. It was just really awesome to talk to you. It's I've been listening to you for a few years now, and you definitely, changed my worldview quite a bit by introducing me so many great guests that you have on, and just keep doing what you're doing. There's not too many of you out there, so. Well,
thanks for saying that. The guests, it's all about the guests, isn't it? We get some terrific people on. Man, I really appreciate it. I'm delighted to have met you today. Thanks. I'm sure we'll do it again in the near future. Thanks for phoning in. All the best to you there in Western Massachusetts, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again in the next short while. I'll see you on YouTube anyway and on Twitter. Thanks for that today. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Richie. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Matt. Lovely stuff. Hey, that's Matt there, anonymous in Western Massachusetts. Great to have him on. I think we've got Jody. Listen, I do see a few cell phone calls coming in. Don't panic. I'll get you on. When I'm speaking with somebody, don't drive yourself mad by repeatedly phoning. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll get back to you. We might have Jody. I think we might have Jody or Joe. I'm not sure. Is it Jody or is it Joe? How you doing?
It's Jodie. Hello.
How you doing, Jodie? Where are you calling from?
I'm from Manchester.
You're not far from me then. But you're in Leeds now, is that right?
No, I'm in Manchester.
Oh, you are in Manchester. Which part of Manchester are you in, Jodie?
Right now I'm in the Northern Quarter.
You're in the Northern Quarter. I'd be tempted now if I was you to have a beer if I was in the Northern Quarter. But anyway,
That's exactly what I'm doing, Richie.
Oh, you're having a beer and you're on to me. Well, slaunch you. Jodie, the floor is yours. What would you like to say?
I listen to you every day. I love your stuff. All I wanted to ask you is, what do you do when you're not on the show? Like, how do you take time off and rest and recuperate and get your mind off all normally what is so negative in the news and in politics?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And what I do is, once I get to Friday morning, I just ignore it, Jodie. I ignore it until Sunday. I don't have anything to do with it. It's tempting, and you might hear something, or there might be a news story or a newspaper, but I try to just ignore it and just listen to music, chill out. I love walking with the dog. I love jogging, and I love a beer myself, Jodie, it must be said. Ignore it is the best thing to do, Jodie. You know, I think for anybody that consumes this information, I think it's hard, it's tough, and it has an effect on you. And I think my advice to people is give yourself a bit of time away from it, even if you're really invested in it. Give yourself a bit of time. I mean, what about yourself? Do you switch off from it yourself? Do you say, right, I'm not listening to any more shows, I'm not going to watch any of this, I'm just going to get out? What do you do? Yourself?
I do step away from it, but it's more difficult because I consume a lot of, conspiracy theories and what you would call the truth or industrial complex. So it sticks more in your mind than the normal mainstream news does. However, I just, like you said, get away, go for a walk, go for a pint, do some yoga, just go sleep.
Brilliant. The yoga, eh?
Because you've got to. I mean, it's the English saying, and if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
No, you're right. Do you know, we talked about yoga, Caroline and myself. We've kind of bandied around the idea of yoga in the past. So you did a bit of yoga. Is there an issue? I mean, you obviously watch or listen to quite a bit of independent kind of sources or source material. Is there one particular issue that you're interested in more than most? Is there one that's on your mind more than most, Jodie?
It's absolutely disgusting, and I don't like to listen or talk about it, but it must be said, the worldwide child sex trafficking ring that's been there forever, and
right.
Also the dark arts of the intelligence services.
The child sex trafficking thing is massive, isn't it? And Epstein and his death and the suicide. What did you make of all that? Epstein's suicide and the media reporting of it. What have you made of it?
Well, the funny thing is, I've been in the conspiracy forums for many, many years online, and I knew all about him probably since about 2005. It was open knowledge online. 2008, he got his sweetheart deal. Absolutely nothing came from it. And then he got arrested the next time, and I was buzzing. I thought, yes, finally, it's coming to the mainstream. Next thing you know, exactly as you predicted, he's gone and topped himself, or he's gone back to his island or whatever. But I think it's just absolutely ludicrous. The good thing that's come out of it, though, is the whole world seems to have got onto the thing that some conspiracy theories are actually true, and they shouldn't take the piss out of some people for doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jodie. I've heard a lot of people on various radio stations, and they're mainstream people, and they're obviously pretty horrified by the Epstein thing, and they don't believe that Epstein killed himself, and they can't understand how he would have been able to do that despite, all the scrutiny on him and the high profile nature of the case. So maybe the Epstein thing, Jodie...
He was the most high profile...
Wasn't he?
...prisoner in the world.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no way. If Mr. Joe Bloggs can go to prison for intent to supply and be on lockdown every single day, and Jeffrey Epstein can, kill himself, no way. Absolutely no way.
What do you think about... Look, we don't want to libel anybody. We won't do that. But what do you think about his connections to the Clintons and Trump and the royal family? I mean, I'm a pessimist. Like, I look at the royal family and I think because of his obvious close relationship with Andrew, well, they're never really going to... The press here is never really going to dig into that. What do you think?
They're going to touch on the surface because they have to, because the backlash if the press didn't touch the Prince Andrew thing would be absolutely immense. However, they're never going to go down. It's obvious. He was, I think, in my opinion now, and I'm the same as you, I'm a pessimist, I believe the whole thing with the Epstein could have just been that the pressure was mounting so much on the internet and in independent media on the worldwide sex trafficking ring that it was just like a patsy, like, yeah, we know about it, and then people talk about it, and then the news cycle continues and everybody forgets.
Something else happens and people just move on. That's the way it goes, yeah. I mean, the royal family's an interesting one. Prince Charles and Jimmy Savile. Charles, obviously, very close friend, describes Savile as his greatest friend.
God, it's all of them. It's absolutely all of them. They've all been in it, and they do it. It's just it's a worldwide child sex trafficking ring, but it's a blackmail game at the end of the day.
Is that what you think? You think that Epstein was basically working with maybe CIA, maybe other Mossad, maybe to basically entrap people so that you can get them? Go on.
I think he was an asset. I don't believe he was high up in the ranks and going to any meetings or anything, but he was definitely used by some people to, as has been said on your show many times, get him in a room and all of a sudden comes out that the person they've been diddling with is actually underage, or they know it. I don't believe I'm a high flyer in the intelligence world, but he probably had some connections. He must have. Look at how he made his money.
And it's before we move on, Jodie, thanks for calling in, by the way. Great to hear from you today in the northern quarter. So you look at the Epstein thing, you look at politicians in general. I've come to believe myself, it doesn't mean I'm right, but I've come to believe that you don't get to be a big wig in a political party unless you've got some compromising material that is being held over your head. That's what I've come to believe. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you, and that is the main problem in politics now. I mean, we need a full revamp of the system, but what we need is real people who work real jobs going up to a high position in power rather than just getting up there, because like was said on your show the other day, they pick out the ones that are maybe a little bit sadistic, killing animals or something, and then say, hey, do you want to come to our politics club? Next minute, fucking Boris Johnson's Prime Minister.
Before you know it, you've got a guy who burned money in front of homeless people. Jodie, thanks for calling in. Lovely to hear from you today. Really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to the programme as well. Means a lot to me. Cheers for that. That was Jodie on the line from the Northern Quarter in Manchester City Centre, which is marvellous. Lovely place to have a few beers and all the rest of it. You can Skype the programme. It's a chat with Richie on Skype, or you can phone the programme. I've given you the phone number already. If you're inside the UK, it's 0161 818 2018. That's 0161 818 2018. Now, Josh is trying to get through on Skype. Josh, hang on a second. I've taken a mobile phone call. I'm going to bring that in. And when I'm done with that, when we have a chat, I'll come to you, Josh, on the Skype there. So, and then I'll get Paula on after Josh. So I've got lots of people queued up there as well. Good old phone in this afternoon. You are with the Richie Allen Show live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, richieallen.co.uk, triggerwarning.tv, and, multiple other platforms as well. We're going live to the mobile phone caller now. Caller, welcome to the programme. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, Richie. It's Marco. I'm from the northeast of England.
How you doing, Marco? Thanks for calling in,
very
pal.
Well.
Nice to have you on the show today. How's your Monday been so far?
It's been lovely. I've had a few glasses of wine.
Good man, Marco. The Monday Club.
Best way to get into it.
Absolutely right. Listen, as I always say, it's my little cliche. You have the floor, my friend. What would you like to talk about?
It's just following up on what Matt was talking about earlier about the creation of money.
Brilliant. Go ahead.
Now, do you remember Michael O'Deara was on with the Great British Mortgage?
I do, yeah. Lovely fella and really important, yeah. Really good.
Well, I bought the video, or the DVD rather, and following up on what you said, he mentioned an economist called Richard Werner, the German spelling, Werner. Now, I don't know whether people know it, but he actually did some research papers that proved that banks actually create money out of nothing. And he reckons, it's the first time in the history of banking that it's actually been proved.
Richard Werner, yeah, I've just brought his name up there. Marco, and he's a German economist and a banking expert, and he's taught or teaches at De Montfort University. So he's a mainstream guy. He's a system guy, and he's spilling the beans on how money is really created. Is he? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That
He actually did some research where he went to. He actually analysed the transactions and looked at the way the banks accounted for the money being transferred, and it's as Michael O'Deara said. Basically they created out of nothing, and there's no actual transfer of money.
No transfer of money whatsoever, and this goes
just
back.
An accounting trick.
That's right. The banks are legally allowed in some countries 7-8 times. They can loan 7 or 8 times more than the reserves they have. In some countries, it's 10 times their reserves, meaning their capital reserves, meaning you are 100% right, Marco, that when they give you a loan, they're taking no risk. That money has been created at the very point the transaction is made out of nothing. It's numbers on a screen. It doesn't have any value, and it's backed up by nothing. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it seems to be the case that the idea that they have to have a sort of capital reserve on which the money, on which they can, from which they can allow a multiple of that capital reserve, isn't actually the case. It just seems that they can just lend money willy-nilly.
And that makes them, I love that word, de facto. We used to have a Taoiseach in Ireland who used to say that all the time, de facto. That makes them the rulers of the universe then. Of course it does. Because they get to decide who gets money, who doesn't get money, where money is spent, where money isn't spent. So they're basically running the whole show, the banks.
It would appear so, because, I mean, there's nothing backing it up apart from confidence. There's no gold reserves anymore.
That's right. We've not been on the gold standard for decades.
Funny enough, now talking about gold, that just reminded me. There was a question on, I think it was The Chase. I don't know if you ever, well, you probably won't see it because you're on air. And one of the questions was, how many gold bars does the Bank of England own? And it was something like 2,000 or 2 million. And according to the question, it was about just two.
Wow.
It's a quiz show, but I mean, little things like that, you do sort of wonder, don't you?
Yeah, you do, yeah. You do. And the whole house of cards, it's my belief that the whole system, this illusion of freedom, which is an illusion because we're not free, is propped up by the monetary system. And when people have tried to take it on over the years, they've been murdered. They've been disappeared off the face of the earth, or they've been ridiculed and they've been accused of racism because so many of the biggest financiers of all time have claimed to be Jewish. Warburg, Oppenheimer, Rothschild, of course. It's got nothing to do with racism whatsoever. And those guys, they're about as religious now as Satan himself. They're not religious, these people. They're not Jews anyway. But that's right. That once you try and take that on, that's when the system is very quick to try to destroy people. Who look into that, every mortgage. And do you know what I think, Marco? I think ultimately it's an ingenious system. You know, it's how they manage to get all the real wealth, because real wealth, of course, is land, it's property, it's water, it's forests, right? It's minerals, of course. That's all real wealth, and they get that real wealth by loaning countries up to their bloody jacksy in debt, and then saying to the countries, oh, you can't pay us now, don't worry about it, thanks, you can give us control of your water and we'll sell it to a multinational corporation. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Sickening, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
It's sickening.
I mean, to be honest, I used to think that when you went to a bank, it gave you something that it already had. But in reality, it looks like it doesn't. You know, basically all they do when they say give you a mortgage is they're buying a security off you.
That's right.
What your promise to repay is the security.
They're not spending any money and they're not taking any risk. There is no risk. And the lousy bastards then go to an insurance company which is in on the scam, and they take out an insurance policy against the mortgage going into default. So when they take your house, which they took no risk for, they also go and get the value of the house from the insurance company. They're the biggest gangsters on planet Earth, Marco. It seems
to be that way, doesn't it?
It's absolutely shocking. Whereabouts are you in the northeast, my friend?
Near Newcastle.
So you're not far from Newcastle. 5G is a big issue, and it's a big issue up your way, Marco. The introduction of 5G mobile technology, which people are worried about. Is that something you know much about, or have you been following that?
I've been following because, you had Mark Steele from Gateshead.
That's right, Mark from Gateshead has been on the programme. That's right, yeah. So,
I don't know how far it's really progressed beyond there. I'm aware of 5G. I've been following the issue, and I've been listening to people that you've had on, like Harry Trower and the other fellow, what's his name? And of course, Alana Friedland and all of that.
Alana, I've had Chris Busby on. I think you're trying to think of Chris Busby. Yeah, Chris has been on, yeah. And tomorrow... Sorry, go ahead, Marco. Go ahead. My apologies.
I think basically, as far as I can tell, most people are unaware. All they're getting, if they're getting anything, they're probably getting emails from their mobile phone company saying, "Here's 5G coming, isn't it great?"
Lovely.
I think they've started trialling it in Newcastle, and as far as I'm aware, I've not heard any bad news or anything from there.
Yeah, because
early days.
Well, we know the local media is not going to cover it. Marco, it's been a pleasure to meet you, my friend. Thanks for calling in today. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to try and get as many calls in as I can. It's a brilliant contribution, my friend. I really appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your vino. Wouldn't mind a glass myself, but I've got to be a pro.
Sláinte, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Sláinte is right, my friend. Marco, thanks, mate. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
All the best, Richie.
All the best to you too, mate. Bye for now. Lovely to hear from Marco. So we'll get Josh on. Now. And then I think we had Paula a minute ago. We'll get Paula on then as well. I'm trying to keep an eye on the sequence there. Paula, I hope you're still with us. I'll get to you in a few minutes. It's exactly 1.5 minutes past 6, by the way. This is the Richie Allen Show live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, my website, and TuneIn Radio as well. Loving the calls. Thanks so much to all of you who've called in thus far. We've still got plenty of time this afternoon. And let's say hi to Josh. Josh, you're very welcome, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm thrilled, mate. Thanks. Nice to have you on, Josh. And as I've said to everybody so far, it's over to you, my friend. What would you like to talk about?
Well, the other day I watched the Hunger Games Society for the very first time, and it really shocked me a little bit because the movie displayed human settlement zones. And that's obviously, obviously that's on the agenda for humanity to create human settlement zones for society. And it's also connected to Agenda 21 and many other things as well. So that's been in my mind recently, ever since I watched the Hunger Games Society a few days ago.
Now tell me this, Josh. You sound like you're Welsh, by the way, are you?
No, I'm from Newcastle.
Oh, you're from Newcastle. My ears need syringing then, obviously. Sorry, Josh. Thanks for calling in. This is brilliant now. Hunger Games Society. I saw it around about the time it came out because David was saying, you got to see this, Richie. It's the agenda. Now, here's the question for you, my friend. Why are we seeing these films? Is this predictive programming, or is there somebody working in Hollywood trying to tell people this is what's coming? Why did these films get to the screen if they're so accurate, kind of eerily accurate about how things are going to go? What do you think?
Well, I think they're there to make people believe that they're fictional, when in fact it's not fictional, it's what's going to happen. So these films get released, and to me personally, I think it's just to make people believe that, oh, it's just fictional, it's science fiction, it's not really going to happen, when in fact it's happening every day. So I think these films are released to give people the perception that they're just fictional films. Oh, that would never happen in reality, when in fact it is.
I tell you what, you're smarter than I am, mate. I'm not patronising you. I actually didn't consider that possibility. Is that you put this stuff on screen and you forever associate it in people's minds with fiction. Wow, that's a very good point, Josh.
Yes.
Very good point. So these human settlement zones, I was in I was in one morning when I was on my holiday, because I didn't go anywhere, so I wasn't out walking about, I was in, and there was one of these home improvement shows on the BBC. That's what you pay your licence fee for, these bloody home improvement shows. They're never ending. And they're never ending, are they? They're on every bloody channel. So I'm watching it, and some of the participants are talking about how things are going to change in a few years, how houses are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Like in Japan. We're going to have these tiny little rooms. I'm thinking, what? Where are they getting that?
Yeah,
but of course, that's the agenda, isn't it?
Yes, it's so tiny. I mean, you've got it's like a tiny bed sit. That's what it is. Where there's no walls. You just walk. You can see your bedroom from your living room. There's no walls. That's how tiny it's going to be. It's so small that it's not even going to have any doors or walls or anything like that. Only privacy. It's very scary. But these human settlement zones. Did you see the movie where the woman I can't remember her name, but she kind of the fence was all electric, but there was this tiny little space where she crawled through, and then she went into the forests. Well, that's what's going to happen in decades to come, but on steroids. So we're not going to be able to go to the beach as often as we used to. We're not going to go to the forest. So they want to restrict movement as much as possible.
And are they going to use, Josh, this is really great stuff, mate. Great call, this great contribution. Do you think they're going to use climate? So climate change is the thing. The Mark Windows is bang on the money here, isn't he? Windows has got it spot on. Climate change is going to be the cause célèbre that they're going to roll all this stuff out because we're killing the planet.
They're using climate change to using climate change as a mechanism for us to change how we live. So they're using climate change. They're trying to scare the public to believe that the climate is that the environment is under threat, and it's classic problem reaction solution, like David Icke says.
It's classic, isn't it? Do you know there was a feature on Sky News yesterday morning. I could have brought it up in the Sunday programme, but I didn't. But it was about children and reading, and they were talking about Roald Dahl, and I thought, oh, this is lovely. I thought, they're talking about children reading books and all of that. But it had something to do with climate change, and they were talking about how wonderful it is that they've got these role models now like Greta and others, and it's all wonderful. And
David Attenborough.
And David Attenborough, that's right. And one of the contributors said, it's great now, these children understand. They're not happy that we are screwing up the planet for them, and the children are kind of taking the planet back. And I thought, this is madness. This is madness. And go ahead, Josh. This is crazy. It's crazy stuff.
Well, they're using. They're using. I mean, if you really want to, how can I put this into words? They are using children to kind of. They're using children as a kind of tool to make people think that, oh well, they're using children and Greta Thunberg as a tool to try and socially engineer people to think that oh, God bless these children.
Well said. Well said, mate. Socially engineering people to think, oh, God love them. We surely we've got to listen to them. We can't destroy the planet. We've got to stop. We've got to stop what we're doing just for the little children. I mean, it's not just children. So you've got teenagers. They're being taught that you can't get a house because, they're blaming older people for that. You can't get a job because people are working much longer. It's always somebody else's fault. They're not encouraging people to think for themselves and to take any personal responsibility. With youngsters and teenagers and 20-somethings, they're being engineered, I think, to always look outside of themselves for something or someone to blame for the situation they're in, Josh.
Yeah, it's very, very scary. And David Attenborough is this kind of he's put up with this kind of eccentric, what's the word? He's put up there as this kind of eccentric, I forgot the word. He's put up there as this kind of eccentric kind of person that knows what he's talking about, when in fact David Attenborough to me is just an establishment goon. That's what I think anyway. And listen, David Attenborough is 88. He's not going to be around for much longer. So when he dies, people aren't going to look back to him and say, "Oh well, you predicted this and you predicted that," because he would be dead.
Yeah, these are this particular time. I don't know. It almost feels like things are aligning right now. That this particular time is key to wherever we end up, this particular year or two. And again, to give David Icke a bit of credit there, he did say to me a couple of years ago, he said this particular period, 18, 19, 20, 21, those years are huge in terms of, we're approaching the last chance saloon where it's going to get to a stage where we won't be able to stop it if we don't start kind of waking up to it, becoming more aware of it and challenging it as and when we see it. I'll give you the final word, Josh, and then I'm going to get Paula on. Loads of callers today. Lovely to hear from you, my friend. Final word to you, and thanks for calling in.
Well, I think people need to be a bit more resilient, and so if someone calls you a climate change denier, I think that's just silly. I think people are going to have this stick to what they believe in, and don't believe and don't get peer pressured to believe in a certain way when you know what's really going on.
Yeah, brilliant, Josh. Thanks, mate. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And great to hear from you. And thanks for listening to the programme as well. That was Josh there in the northeast. I don't know why I thought Josh was Welsh. I don't know what's wrong with me. Now, I'm going to get Paula on because I've been keeping an eye on the old queue there. And Paula's got something interesting to tell me. I have no doubt. And when Paula... we'll get Patricia on then, and then there's others queuing up there as well. We'll get through everybody. It's coming up for 11 minutes past 6. So Paula is going to join us now for a chat. This is the Richie Allen Show, live on Fab Radio 2 here in Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, lots of other places, and the programme is on the TuneIn radio app as well from the App Store. There you are. All right. Okay. Paula, how you doing? Welcome to the programme. How are you?
Not so bad, Richie. I'm a little bit stuffed up, a little bit like you. But,
have you? You're bummed up. Oh, you've got a cold, have you? Loads of vitamin C, Paula. You know the drill. Loads of vitamin C. And you do your best. Now, you had a letter from the Labour Party, as far as I understand. And it's annoyed you. Tell us about it.
Well, to be honest, I've got a list of things I would like to say to the Labour Party, so I was quite pleased to be given the opportunity.
Well, this is what we're here for. So you're obviously a member of the Labour Party. You're a Labour Party supporter, I'm guessing.
No, not at all.
You're not.
I haven't voted in years. I'm of the same opinion as you. It doesn't matter which idiot we get in. We're always going to have the same result.
Yeah.
So the last time I voted was the referendum, to be perfectly honest with you, and it has played out as you have foretold.
Not just me. We all knew, Paula. Come on, you knew in your bones, Paula. They'd never leave us leave, right? They'd never let us out. You knew.
There was a slight sense of hope, but unfortunately that's now gone.
Yeah.
Seeing the debacle that's gone on in Parliament. So what I'm going to start with doing, because there's loads of subjects I'd love to talk to you about, but I will start by reading you the letter. Okay?
Absolutely, Paula, go ahead.
Right, so I've got, local people often contact me about their major concerns for themselves, their family and our country. So I'm writing to you about 3 important issues. NHS. The NHS is Britain's most treasured and valued institution, yet in recent years cutbacks locally have meant difficulty getting GP appointments. I'm from the sort of Bishop Auckland kind of ward, which is just South Durham. Okay, so there's been a loss of mental health services. Last winter, we succeeded in our campaign to stop the closure of Ward 6 at Bishop Auckland Hospital. Now I'm fighting a proposal to shut Wards 3 and 4, which provide stroke rehabilitation. This country needs serious investment in health and social care to meet the needs of an ageing population. Standards of living have stood still for 10 years. Bad cold. As wages have stagnated while costs continue to rise. The difficulties young people face in buying a home often impact on the whole family. This is why I introduced a bill to cut the fees property developers charge on new builds. To make sure we have enough jobs to fund our public services and maintain living standards, people need good, secure, well-paid jobs, and that depends on a thriving economy. 2 years ago, I stood on a manifesto which set out how 250,000 jobs could be created through green industrial revolution.
Right.
Here in the northeast, with our natural resources and engineering strength, we would particularly benefit from this. So working with Durham University, I have been pressing for a geothermal strategy using our warm mine resources. This also has extra bonus of fighting climate change. I want to see an end to short-termism based on financial speculation and a return to investment in the long term for a real economy. I would be pleased to discuss these and other issues with you. So please come and have a cup of tea or coffee with me at 6:30 on Wednesday, the 18th of September in Bishop Auckland.
Wow.
To register for venue details, please get in touch.
Wow, so this is your local MP, right?
Yes, this is Helen Goodman, MP.
Helen Good. So what do you make of that? What do you take out of that?
Oh, I just thought, I can't wait.
Fantastic.
I've got plenty of things to say to you, dear.
And it just came in. I mean, you're not a registered Labour voter.
No,
you're not a member of the party. You've not voted.
No.
You said you only voted in a referendum.
Exactly.
How did?
What I imagine is they've randomly sent out these letters, knowing how bad the feeling is in the northeast towards Labour after everything that's happened.
After everything that's happened, because I'm guessing that your constituency voted to leave.
Obviously, yeah. I think we were about at 75%.
75%. I'm in Rebecca Long Bailey's ward. I was looking for an excuse to say that today. Rebecca Long Bailey. I'm in Rebecca Long Bailey's constituency, and I think Salford Eccles, we voted 58.5% to leave. So that's a substantial victory for Leave. People in the northeast and in the northwest are fed up. The idea that it's some sort of right-wing thing, that it's some sort of racist thing, is nonsense, isn't it, Paula? Working class people.
It's absolutely nonsense. The people in the northeast are probably the warmest people you could possibly meet.
Yeah.
In the UK. I mean, I was a member of the armed forces for a couple of years. Don't ask me how that ended. But let's just say I have too many opinions.
How did that end, Paula?
Sorry.
How did that end? I mean, how did you find yourself in the armed forces? Do you mind? You don't have to talk to me about that if you don't want, but if you do.
No, that's absolutely fine. To be honest, I was struggling to know what I was going to do. I was only very young. I was only 17, actually. I wanted to leave home, and I thought that was the easiest way to do it, so I applied for the Royal Air Force. And hey presto, I got on. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm not very good at taking orders and have too many opinions. So that didn't particularly end well for me.
Not the best place in the world to be now, Her Majesty's armed forces, if you don't like being told what to do.
I have a son now that's 21, and he started mentioning last year he wanted to join the army. I nearly had a heart attack.
What can he do, Paula? What is there for your son and his mates? I'm sure some of your son's mates, maybe even your son, maybe they're educated third level, maybe they're not. It doesn't matter. What is there for them now? What can they do when they leave school?
Well, the clothing industry left, right and centre. I looked really deeply into it a couple of years ago. From the town that I actually originated from, it was an old pit town, same as most people in the northeast. And what they did is they closed the pits, but they brought in the industry. Now, because I do a lot of research, I came across this paper by a sociology student in America that basically broke down how you could break down the communities of the northeast.
Yeah.
And do you know what? If I find the link, I will send it to you.
Yeah, I've seen something like this before, Paul. I've seen this. I'm sure I've seen this. Yeah. I mean, I talk to a lot of people. I'm still in touch with a lot of people who marched, trade unionists against pit closures. I'm still in touch with a lot of people who remember, the madness of that time, Scargill, the horrific behaviour of the police, the horrific behaviour of Thatcher and her government. I mean, they put a lot of resources and money and investment into destroying the morale of people in the northeast.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the northwest,
It absolutely ripped the whole country apart. I mean, me and my husband, we even had a pub for a while in Derbyshire, which was the proper mining community. Now, over there, literally, families do not speak to each other anymore because of what happened during the miners' strike.
Because of scabs and what have you, and all the rest of it.
It just scarred everybody so deeply. I mean, I was only just growing up then when all of this happened. I mean, I'm the same age as you.
Yeah.
So we sort of round about the same kind of thinking.
Yeah, but you'd have been impressionable. You would have been, you know, you would have been coming towards your teens, you would have been 8 or 9 or 10 years of age, you'd have felt that tension and that misery and that fear that your community had.
Actually, funnily enough, I remember actually walking into a neighbour's house, and they were redecorating, and they'd stripped the wallpaper off the wall and they'd wrote "shit to Maggie Thatcher" on the wall. I just remember that. That was just one of the things from childhood. But I mean, the North East kind of got over that a little bit. We had a big industrialisation. There was 3 main factories that everyone got employed for. You could walk out of a job one day and then walk into a job the next.
What were they, Paula? I'm guessing they employed tens of thousands of people. What were those 3 factories?
Electrolux, Black & Decker and Thorns. They're
very big companies, right? And
really big companies. Now, I also have an insider view on this because my mum married a director, actually.
Oh, did she?
From Black & Decker itself. And I didn't know this until a few weeks ago, but the European Union paid Black & Decker to leave England and take everything to China. And that was way back in early 90s.
Early 90s. And you know, that segues neatly into, you talk about the loss of manufacturing. You know, I've gotten into this on the radio show, maybe not lately, but I have done since the referendum result. The European Union has taken industry out of this country, relocated it to other countries in Europe and Eastern Europe and in Southern Europe. And
Which is why you can't understand how people are so stupid.
Because they don't know, Paula. They haven't a clue. They don't know that the European Union gave industries, and I don't have a list to hand, but I could get a list very quickly, gave industries in this country grants to take their business to up sticks and move where labour was cheaper.
Black & Decker.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people don't know that. How frustrating is it for you in the North East that people don't know that?
It's dreadful. Do you know, I would hate to be like a youngster these days out there looking for a job. I mean, this is on a slightly different note, but you were talking about it on your show the other week, and it was about how employers sort of search through your history on your Facebook, on your Twitter, to see what kind of a person you are before they employ you. Well, I know that you were on a bad one with this. Was it LBC you went for the job for?
LBC, I'll never forget it. Yeah, don't get me. I start crying, Paula. I've had to go to therapy. I start crying if I think about
it. I had the same issue with my last job. What it is I posted in what I thought was an innocuous tweet, but it ended up being my downfall with the company. I worked in, I did work in selling new houses actually. But my big downfall was tweeting about, well, I keep hearing a lot of anti-Semitism and all of this that's going on in the Labour Party. However, what about what is happening in Palestine at the moment and the Gaza Strip? And there's nobody mentioning this. Why is this not mentioned? So I put that out and I was immediately, I think it was a week later, hauled into the director's office to say I came across as being xenophobic.
Is that right now?
And that was on my personal Twitter feed, which is why I don't tweet anymore. I mean, I'm a bit of a technophobe anyway.
So what was your response to that? I mean, you've already told us you don't take too kindly to being told what to do, and that's fair enough.
Well,
I'm the same. So what did you say?
Well, I kicked off a little bit, as you can imagine, not being sort of like the quiet type. But yeah, kicked off a little bit, and.
But isn't this outrageous that we're in a paradigm now where companies and employers think that they have a stake in what people do in their private time on their social media accounts.
Absolutely.
That they can say, hey, Paula, I'd like to have a word with you. Not too happy with some of the stuff you're tweeting. It reflects negatively on the company. I mean, that's outrageous.
Yeah, I know. And actually, I didn't just work for a normal company. I worked under an umbrella of a housing company, which was also like... how would you say it? It also managed all of the rented homes in the area that do now. I'm not trying to give too much away because I have signed a non-disclosure agreement and had a paycheck to reflect the fact that I wouldn't take things any further.
Fair enough.
But it was, you know how you have, it's sort of like working for the council. So I had all the nice perks of the holidays and sort of working in the public sector, but I was actually making the profit for this company.
I'm with you. I'm following you. Yeah. Just be careful you don't say anything you shouldn't say now because you have signed the end.
No, I wouldn't say anything else. I wouldn't mention the company or anything like that. But it it was a very strange situation. I'd never had anything like that before because I didn't think it was a particularly bad tweet, and I certainly don't think I'm racist.
It doesn't, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If you tweeted something in on your Twitter that was racist, well, that's a matter for Twitter first and foremost, and then it's a matter for the law potentially. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with the company you work for. And this, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is totalitarianism in. I've said this a lot lately. Technicolor. It's right there.
They're
for
not
people.
even tiptoeing anymore.
No, it's in Technicolor. Where we don't like you. Maybe you shouldn't be saying that sort of stuff on Twitter, Paul. Well, hang on a second. At what point do I become a private citizen again after I've left my job? At what point am I not being employed by you? I would have thought it was at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whatever the bloody time it is. I'm so glad you brought it up because I'm warning people incessantly to watch out for this.
I'm so careful now. I mean, I came off Facebook a couple of years ago. I've actually just recently gone back on, but on a very, let's just say, I don't tweet about. I don't tweet. I don't put where I'm going, what I'm doing, what my feelings are. I'm using it as sort of a means to sort of grow my own business, which at the end of the day, I think I've been a little bit like you and decided to go independent. It's pointless working for people that don't agree with the same.
Isn't it though? Isn't it just? And it's not easy to be self-employed. I mean, it isn't. In any line of work, it isn't easy. It's difficult.
No.
It's hard. It's stressful and all the rest of it. But if that's the way it's going to be, if you're now going to have to realise in the 21st century that, well, I've got a job, and now that changes, that must change what I say, how I say it, and when I say it. Well, that's terrifying. And then Jean Ann has just sent me a message, and she's quite right. That goes right into the coming social crediting system of managing people, where you'll be scared, Paul, and I'll be scared of saying anything.
Richie. It absolutely terrifies me, I'll be honest.
Imagine that. And all of a sudden, your bank says, well, look, we've put a block on your account. Well, you've been a bit racist lately. What? Yeah. But that's where we're going. And it's not scaremongering. It's not fear-mongering our listeners. That's where we're going. I've got some other calls I want to get through, Paula, so I'm going to give you the final word. And I've loved meeting you. As much as meeting everybody else today, I've loved having you on the programme. Thanks for sharing that. And when you do go to this meeting with your MP, give her socks. Give it to her right between the eyes, Paula.
I'll get back to you. You'll have to do this calling.
We'll do the call again, find out how it went. But I'll give you the final word, and thanks for phoning in today. I really appreciate it. Final word to you, Paula.
Thanks a lot, Richie. All the best to you and all the listeners as well.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, Paula. Paula in the north east of the country there. Great to have her on. This is the Richie Allen Show. We're coming up for 27 minutes past the hour. I had I thought Richard Gage was going to be on with me today. Richard will be on with me tomorrow. And I kind of had it in my mind I was going to get him on today, but tomorrow, I think it was tomorrow anyway. So I said I would open the Skype and open the phone line. And absolutely brilliant to have her on. Paula there, and to everybody else who's been on. Will we take a musical break? Will we? Or will we not? We are. We're going to take Frankie Valli. And when we come back from Frankie, we're going to Zurich. And to a friend of mine, somebody I'm very fond of, Patricia Braunschweiler, is going to have a chat with me. So we'll do that after Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. How about that, eh? Yeah. Long-time visitor to Manchester, Frankie, by the way. Loves the arena, does Frankie. Back in a minute with Patricia. Yeah, Frankie Valli loves Manchester. I know this. I've never met Frankie Valli, but he's touring non-stop. He's always on the road, Frankie. And Frankie Valli, it's interesting. I'm 44 now, of course, and I grew up in a house where a lot of great music was played, including Frankie Valli. And you mentioned Frankie Valli now. Maybe some younger folks might remember that he played Rusty in The Sopranos, the mayor of Munchkinland. Rusty in The Sopranos, Frankie Valli. But he often appears here in Manchester at the arena, and it sells out very quickly too. Does Frankie. Now, let's welcome back to this programme, by the way, a great friend of mine. I have to put my hands up straight away and say, a great friend of mine and this radio show, and a great supporter of the independent media. It's my friend, Patricia Braunschweiler, who's in Zurich, in Switzerland. How you doing, our kid? How you doing, Patricia?
I'm doing great, Richie.
Good to hear from you. What's it like in Zurich? Zurich, Patricia. It must be amazing.
Actually, today it was pretty nice. We had a little bit of a bad weather series, and now we're getting back a little bit into warmer weather. But you never know what to expect here.
No, that's right. Yeah.
It's crazy. But first of all, I want to say I'm not going to go into how much I appreciate you and how much you do, because I think you already know that. But what I kind of wanted to bring up a little bit early, in 2 days is the anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to talk about this University of Alaska study that was funded by architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. And they have pretty much come to the conclusion that this building number 7, which I'm not even sure if Americans, no less the rest of the world, actually knew that it came down, that it wasn't brought down by office fires.
No.
That they initially said. And that I think after 18 years, it's just a little bit crazy that some of these truths that were so pretty obvious to even see, that that they're even coming out now and admitting that what they told, what NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, came out and said it was brought down by fires, and now they're finally admitting that that wasn't true. And I just wonder how long it's going to take before the actual truth of 9/11 comes out. If it took 18 years to just admit that what was pretty obvious didn't happen, how much longer will it take before the actual truth comes out about the whole story about 9/11, which I'm not even sure if it ever will. I can only hope. So I just kind of wanted to bring that subject up, because I know it's in 2 days, and it's just, there are people rotting away in Guantanamo Bay who have not even been brought up on charges, and they're just sitting there for 18 years. And I just can't understand how Americans or the whole world can just let this whole thing slide. It's amazing to me. Anyway,
stay with that. This is important. Jean Ann is listening to this with great interest, and she's listening to you with great interest, and she says this report that Patricia is mentioning hasn't really impacted mainstream media yet. This is the tragedy. It's the tragedy, right? Because you're watching it. I'm so naive now, and I like to pretend that I know how the media operates. And even me, with all of my cynicism, I found myself over the weekend, Patricia, using this app that a friend gave me, where I've got all the American news channels. I'm going through them all, thinking somebody just give it a mention. It's a big academic institution. They've done this 4-year model study. They say the fires couldn't have collapsed the building. What did they say, Patricia? They concluded that everything would have had to fail in the building at once in order for the building to collapse. In other words, it was imploded by explosion.
It was. Listen, Richie, I know I've said this before on Twitter, and I said this before. My husband, of course, Swiss men are obligated to get into the Swiss military. My husband's an engineer. He was part of the demolition crew, and he's really, as soon as he saw these buildings fall, and I'm talking about the other two as well.
Yeah.
The first 30 seconds, he said, probably the first 15 seconds, he said that those were perfect implosions. Those weren't, anybody who's ever been in demolition could see that. And for them to say that these buildings were brought down by airplane fire, okay, I don't even want to go into the other two buildings, but there were still steel beams. But Building 7 was so covered up in the world and in the States. And I can truthfully tell you, I don't even know how many Americans even know about Building 7.
Very few.
Because it was so covered up.
Yeah, you're right, Patricia. Very few people know about it, even today. And it's not just the United States. I reckon if you did a straw poll of people in the UK old enough to have watched it, so people in their late 20s, early 30s, well, you've got to say 30s anyway at this stage, because it's 18 years now since it happened.
Yeah.
So you ask them, and I'm pretty sure you're spot on. They just wouldn't know a third building came down that day. They wouldn't know.
No, Richie, think about this. There will be young people entering college that have never lived a life without the word terrorism, Taliban, scanners at the airport. they've never lived a life before 9/11. And so many questions have not been answered. And it's not just an American issue. I mean, think about the wars in the Middle East that were created on false pretenses because of this whole incident. It's not just an American issue. It's a worldwide issue. And I just have such a difficult time understanding why more people aren't fighting for the truth of 9/11. And it's not because I was born there or anything to do with that. It's just, it has affected the world to such an extent that it's a worldwide issue.
I think you're outraged, I think.
It's just,
do you know what I think, Patricia?
Yeah,
you've got a genuine sense of outrage because we know that a lot of innocent people were murdered that day. We know this. And your outrage is perfectly understandable because you're decent and you're nice and you're kind and you're intelligent, and you don't want to live in a world, no more than I do, where the people who did that get away with it. You know?
No.
And they are getting away with it. Because
and innocent people, I mean, come on, let's face it. Why Iraq? I mean, innocent people have been slaughtered. Countries have been destroyed on false pretenses. And the world, it's just mind-boggling to me that more and more people aren't outraged by the lies that have been told about that day. And I don't want to go on about this because I know you have other callers, but I just thought it was an interesting, right now it's, in 2 days, it's 18 years. And finally the truth hopefully comes out, which as anyone knows in the mainstream media in the States, I'm not even sure if it's even been reported there that this University of Alaska study found that it wasn't brought down by office fires. Come on, anybody with half a brain would know that. But people don't question. That was my whole thing, my whole entire life, that my family, teachers, everybody always said to me, do you have to question everything?
Let me ask you.
And it's gotten me in so much trouble. And I've lost friends. I've kind of lost friends over the guy that's sitting in Disneyland right now. But anyway,
And let me ask you this. While I have you, because it's great to have you on, by the way.
Okay.
It really is. So while I have you on, your husband's experience in demolition. So on the day that it happened, your husband said, listen, this is obviously, they look like perfect implosions. Here's a question for you, my friend. Was that key? Was it important, your husband saying that? Or do you think you might have just swallowed the nonsense? Because I swallowed it. I mean, I broadcast on the day.
No.
You'd have asked questions.
I didn't want to hear it. He walked in, as a matter of fact, after the first building fell, and then, of course, everybody saw the second building because by then it was on the news. He walked in. I said, "You've got to watch this. Something's going on in New York." And as soon as the second building came down, we were watching it on, I think, CNN. As soon as he saw it, that first second, he said, "That's a perfect implosion." And I looked at him and I was like, what? I didn't want to hear it. I knew it was, these bad people came into the States. Are you kidding me? I ran around and I was like, the American flag, and no, we've been attacked. It really took me a while to say, wait a minute, something's not right here. And then I started doing research. But, I'm not the type of person that you can tell me something and I'm just going to walk away and say, yeah, okay, whatever. No. I'm going to start doing my own research. I want to find truth. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized, wow, we have really been lied to. And it gets worse and worse every year that goes by, and the truth still doesn't come out. So I was kind of relieved when I saw that this report from University of Alaska came out. At least there are still people who are searching for truth. And I'm confident that maybe eventually, maybe not in my lifetime, I don't know, but maybe eventually the truth will come out. But there were things going on in the States that day that if people start to look, why was NORAD called down?
Oh, Jesus.
How could these planes have flown around in allegedly the most protected airspace in the world and nothing happened? Come on, people, wake up.
Yeah.
Think about it. Do your research. find out the truth, even if it hurts to find out the truth. The truth is important. We can't just let these things just slide under the carpet and forget about it and say, well, I just got to go to work today and I got to come home and feed my family. No, your life depends on truth. I don't know. Okay, I'm getting carried away.
No, you're not. No, you're articulating perfectly, I think, what people feel about this.
I'm just kind of, I feel really, really good that at least University of Alaska has come out with this. Now, whether or not it will ever make mainstream media in the States, I don't know.
We don't know. Let me ask you one more question before we get Daniel on. And
okay.
See, I don't get the opportunity again. No, before we get Daniel on. So you initially buried your head in the sand, even though your husband knew what was going on. How long before you did begin to look at it, and where did that take you? I mean, that's a big question.
Well, first of all, when I knew that the United States was going into Afghanistan, I thought, okay, well, I guess that's where the Taliban's from. I really didn't. It didn't register. But then when I heard about Iraq, and I thought, no, okay, wait a minute, stop the presses. Something's wrong here. And that's when I really, embarrassingly, a little bit late, woke up and I thought, no, something's wrong here. You don't go into a country that had nothing to do with it. And allegedly Saudi Arabia was what people think were the hijackers, why Iraq? Why not Saudi Arabia? Nothing made sense to me. And then I started doing my research, and then I started seeing the lies and the cover-ups, and it just turned out to be the biggest bullshit story
ever told. It's the greatest fairy tale ever told, isn't it? That
greatest fairy tale ever told, and it's amazing to me that even to this day people don't question it. Even to this day, people think Saddam Hussein had something to do with it.
Imagine they still do. Do you know what? That doesn't occur to me too often, but you're right. They probably still do. Fox News viewers and Sky News viewers probably think, yes, Saddam had his fingerprints on September the 11th, but of course he didn't. He had nothing to do with it.
Big bad Saddam, and so, it's just, Richie, it's just how it is. And that's why I love shows like yours. I love the questions. I love people coming on. Don't go with the narrative. Question the narrative. That's the most important thing to do. Question the narrative. Anyway, I'll let Daniel get on now.
It was brilliant to hear from you today. Thanks, Patricia. Right, I'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you.
Look after yourself. Bye for now. That's Patricia Braunschweiler, is an old friend of mine and a great supporter of the independent media, great champion of the independent media and independent media content creators. She's absolutely brilliant. 16 minutes to the top of the hour or thereabouts. Daniel is an old pal of mine, is Daniel. We're going to get him on now. Because I said he's next. Daniel, we're going to have Daniel on, and Daniel did something that I've been saying for years and years and years. I've been saying for years to people who've listened to programs like this, and I think a lot of people didn't take me seriously, or they're like, yeah, he's only saying that, it's a saturated market. I said, no, if you've got the nous, if you've got something to say, use the tools that you have at your disposal, your laptop, your computer, your microphone, your mixing desk, and go and put stuff out there. Talk to people. Talk about things. If you've got a different perspective on things, if you've got a different take, make your own podcast. Do your own YouTube videos. And my old pal Daniel makes... Daniel Ford, by the way. Daniel makes a program called Pay-Per-View. That's paper as a newspaper, view as in V-I-E-W. And he's been at it now for, I reckon, just over a year, maybe a little bit longer. And like everybody who starts down this particular road of creating content for media, whether it's visual, whether it's audio, whether it's video, it takes a bit of time before you can kind of, get on your feet. It takes a bit of fine tuning. But he's in the top job, so he is. And I've retweeted it and mentioned it quite a bit on Twitter. So Daniel Ford from Bristol, my old pal, welcome back. How you doing?
How you doing? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Now hang on. We have a load of background noise there.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're not in a train station or anything, are you? Because I can barely hear you, Daniel.
I know. That's the same with you. Can you hear me better now?
No. It sounds like you're in a wind tunnel. So can you sort that out and get back to me, or just just text me your mobile phone number and I'll call you. Do that. Because that's unbearable now. It's really, really loud there. So just send me the old mobile number and we'll do it the old dog and bone way. There you go. So I've got another call coming in, but I can't take it because I'm going to ring Daniel. I'll try and get to it before we finish up the programme today. I want to chat with Daniel because he was in early and I said I'd get him on. We're coming up to 14 and a half minutes to the top of the hour. And this is Monday's Richie Allen Show. By the way, I want to say hi to Diane Dennison again in West Waterford, East Cork. How you doing, Diane? And Diane said to me yesterday, she said, Richie, do give a mention to a talk that will happen in Bantry. A talk that will happen in Bantry. It's all about 5G. This coming Wednesday, and it will feature a man from the University College Cork, a man called Dr. Tom Butler. That's on Wednesday at the Maritime Hotel in Bantry at 7 o'clock. Yes. Now, I've reached out to Dr. Tom Butler, and he's going to come on the programme tomorrow to flag up the talk in Bantry on Wednesday, but to talk to you and to me on the Richie Allen radio show about 5G. So Dr. Tom Butler will be on the programme tomorrow, and Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth will be on the programme tomorrow as well. Tell you what, yeah. So I'm waiting for Daniel to come back to me with a number I can call, because it sounded like he was in a wind tunnel there. He could have been in CERN or something, or in a railway station tunnel, or in a tube tunnel. Bit of background noise there. We couldn't hear anything that Daniel was saying there. So while he gets back to us then, we're going to have a bit of Sting. Hang on, he's telling me to try again now, is the boy in Bristol. Let's see, can we get him on now? Our man in Bristol, Daniel.
Hello?
No, it's still really bad. I can barely hear you at all. And we're just getting loads of noise there. Send me a contact number and I'll call you back. Send me a contact number. It's the only way to do it now. And in the meantime, we'll stop farting around with it and we'll have a bit of Sting and Englishman in New York on the Richie Allen Show. Live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, my website, and multiple other platforms. Bit of Sting. Hopefully back with Daniel in a minute. That Sting, we're having a bit of difficulty getting through to Daniel. I don't know what the bloody hell is going on. He's given me a number. I've tried to ring it, and it won't allow me through because the calls are screened by a talk shield thing, Jake. So I don't know if he can give me a quick ring. Failing that, we're just going to have to get him on next time. Failing that, we'll get him on next time. That's the way it goes. We're coming up for 7.5 minutes to the top of the hour. This is the Richie Allen Show. I mentioned already Richard Gage will be on the programme tomorrow, and I'll be speaking with Dr. Tom Butler from University College Cork. That'll be interesting tomorrow, ahead of a conversation he'll be having with people at the Maritime Hotel in Bantry on Wednesday at 7 o'clock about 5G and the dangers of 5G and the dangers of non-ionizing radiation. Well, there you go. There you go. We're going to lose Daniel. All the best laid plans and all the rest of it. He can't get through to me now. I don't know what the hell's bloody going on. I don't know what we're going to do. Daniel, we're just going to have to go with the slings and get you on next time, mate. I'm going to be doing another one of these next week anyway. I am. I'm going to be doing one next week, and I'm going to try and do about 2 of these a month because I know the volume of calls is always very healthy, and I know that you like it. You like the phone-ins. I like the phone-ins as well. So we're going to do more and more of these. Sorry, Daniel. In the meantime, my friend, the best thing I can do is give another plug, by the way. If you go to Podomatic.com and look for pay-per-view, that's paper, P-A-P-E-R, that's paper as in paper, view, and check out Daniel. He takes a troll through the media and the newspapers and has his own take on what's really going on and what's really happening, and he's an interesting lad, so I recommend you do check it out if you can. I've retweeted it several times in the time that he's been presenting it, and it's gotten better and better as he's gone along. Takes a bit of time, you see, to understand the nuances of making podcasts. using audio and using content and how to deliver that in a way that will attract people to listen to it. But he's a good lad. He knows quite a bit about sound and audio and all the rest of it anyway. So check out Pay-Per-View with Daniel Ford, a Bristolian who's been on these phone-ins in the past, and I got to meet him when he came up to Manchester with a great friend of his a year and a half or so ago, I believe. He came up to spend a day here in Manchester. We had a bit of lunch, so we did, and we had a great day with Daniel there. Sorry we couldn't get him on today, to be honest, but there you are, you know. Not my fault. Things go wrong sometimes. Shit happens. Improvise, adapt and overcome. I was told that many times in my early days, in my early media days. Improvise, Richie. Adapt, Richie, and overcome. Don't bitch about it, just get on with it, is what I was told. And I bitched anyway. That's what I do sometimes. I have a good old bitch. So we're nearly at the end then. Massive thanks to all the callers, by the way. Every one of the callers made a very valuable contribution to the programme. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to the next one. Like I said, let's do more of these where we get you talking. And I've had an idea for a programme. Let me share it with you. It's more work for me, of course, which is rather silly. There's only me. The Richie Allen Show is me. The producer, the editor is me. Audio, me. The whole lot, me. Right, me. So I'm not looking for any credit, by the way. I can't believe I'm only remembering it. This week sees the 5th anniversary of the Richie Allen Radio Show. On September 14th, the show will be 5 years old. On September the 14th, which I think is Saturday, it'll be 5 years old. Who'd have believed it? Back in 2014, September 14th, when I began making this radio show. And I think initially when it began, it was Monday to Friday, wasn't it? There was no Sunday View, it was Monday to Friday. And I think it was 8 to 10, wasn't it? Or was it 9 to 11 initially? It might have been 9 to 11, then it went to 8 to 10. Now we are 7 to 9. Now we are where we are, 5 to 7. It'll always be 5 to 7 to give me some sort of a life, you know, with my beloved and all of that. But 5 years we are, and that's a kind of a startling thing for me because it has disappeared in the blink of an eye. It really has. And so many things have happened in the 5 years. And there are so many wonderful people. I'm not going to get into it now. I might get into it on Thursday. Some wonderful people without whom there wouldn't be a radio show. People who've helped out, people who've supported financially, people who've lent their ears and given their time and asked for nothing in return. And of course you, the listener who supports it by putting your hand into your pocket and donating what you can on a monthly basis or whatever. So we might get into that on Thursday. I don't get too emotional about it, but 5 years, you know, and here we are, and it's an amazing thing. Right, going to leave the programme today with Blues Traveller. Again, apologies to Daniel. Daniel, you're first up, mate. Next time you do one of these, we'll get you on first. Going to leave you with Blues Traveller. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Do not miss tomorrow's programme at 5. Richard Gage, Dr. Tom Butler. Before then, we will do it again on YouTube with the newspaper review. My bit of nonsense on YouTube every morning at 9:30. And I'm sure you'll join me at 9:30 tomorrow. Maybe you won't. Look after yourselves and one another. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye from me. Thanks to all the callers again. You're amazing. Thank you. Bye now.